The game is rigged. If you're currently losing, it isn't your fault. But staying broke is. You were trained to be an employee. To win the game, you need to be an owner. At 25 years old, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and that is when everything clicked for me. When poor people get money, it goes directly to expenses. It goes to taxes, rent, food, transportation, clothes, things like that, and it's just poof, it's gone. And often they even use high interest credit cards to spend money before they even have it. The middle class do things differently. When money comes in, it goes directly to liabilities. Money that they've borrowed to buy things to look rich, like maybe a bigger house than they need, a nicer car than they need, student loans. And they also spend a lot of money on credit cards that they don't pay off before interest accrues. And after that, the leftover money goes to their expenses and pays all of those same bills. Poof, their money's gone, and they have very little left. Now, I disagree with this last one a little bit. This is how I imagine it. When the rich have money come in, it might be that same salary and it goes down to buy assets, which go up in value, and then give them either income, appreciation, or both. Now, my experience is that cash flow allows you to quit your job, and appreciation is what makes you rich. The reason is because there's such a big spread in the amount of appreciation you get versus how much cash flow you actually get, that with large sums of money, that appreciation can make you very rich very quickly in just a few years. And later in the video, I'm going to show you the shortcut to how to speed everything up, pulling your future forward and saving you many, many years of your wealth building journey. So as you can see here, most people get it completely wrong. They buy things that go down in value, like cars, boats, and TVs, when really they should be buying things like stocks, real estate, or starting businesses. Now here is where it gets interesting. Money is actually debt, and I explain it in my ebook, Money Isn't Real. Here's a short summary of what I mean. Money is just paper that we print and assign value to. We use it as a medium of exchange. An example would be that I had a bunch of leaves in my backyard, and I had a neighbor kid who wanted to make some money. He came on over, he asked if he could rake up my leaves, and I paid him to do that. A medium of exchange. People used to trade objects or things, maybe like chickens for labor, right? Now we exchange money, and it's all digital. The Fed just presses a button and prints more of it. That is what I mean when I say money isn't real. Here is the part that everybody misses. Money is actually created through debt. When the Fed prints money, they create more of it. So imagine that there used to be $10, and that $10 didn't exist until the government printed it. Now, when they print an additional $10 and there's $20, that initial $10 has now lost value because there's twice the money supply. Every time the Fed prints money, those dollars become worth a little bit less. And this is intentional. They do this on purpose. They inflate the price of assets by printing money, making the rich richer and the poor poorer. Since the rich know that they need to be buying assets, because when money is printed, they use it to buy those assets and money flows into those assets, it artificially increases the value of those. Now, just understanding this will make you want to buy more assets. And you don't buy speculative investments like a lot of people do when they're trying to get rich quick. That doesn't usually work in your favor. It's much better to buy things that go up for sure and get rich for sure than try to get rich by speculating. You can get rich pretty fast if you do the right things and you have the right blueprint. Now, in Money Isn't Real, I not only break down exactly what money is and how it works, I go over exactly what you need to do, the blueprint that I followed and I created to build wealth quickly. My favorite part of this is the money filtration system. This describes what you do with your income coming in. You buy assets, and my favorite thing to buy is strong ETFs. They're typically heavy in growth and tech. You then spend money on credit cards just like everybody else would, but you pay them off before the balance is due, never accruing interest. Then what you do is you borrow money from those assets, and you then pay off the credit card before it ever becomes due. You never sell your assets. They grow indefinitely. They get to compound for the rest of your life. You get continued dividend payments. You never pay taxes. There's so many benefits that come with never selling that you don't get when you sell those assets. This is exactly what I did to build my wealth. Back in 2022, I had started with about $20,000 cash, borrowed from a paid off car, which most people would borrow to go buy a car. I bought assets with it. The market was down about 10% from all-time highs, and I knew that if I were to jump in with borrowed money, that eventually it would go back up. And voila, it did. From there, I just kept buying and buying all through 2022 when the market was down. Let me show you exactly what this looked like. During 2022, we saw something like a 20% bear market for the entire year. Now it's just a speed bump. Knowing that this will happen every time the market goes down, it will eventually recover, is what allows you to buy assets with debt at an early age, understanding that it's safe to do in the long run. 5 years from now, probably it's going to be up. 15 years from now, it will for sure be up. Realizing all of this is when I discovered the shortcut to getting rich. The rich use debt to quickly buy assets at an early age, borrow from those assets, to then buy even more assets. It's an infinite loop. And here's the thing. You don't need to be rich to do this. You can start with just a few $1,000s by using margin to then buy stocks, to then borrow to buy more stocks, to then borrow to buy more stocks. And you can just keep doing this. This is what allows you to buy much more assets much more quickly by using debt as a tool, not as something to be afraid of, like Dave Ramsey would tell you. Debt can work for you or it can work against you. The problem for most people is that in the stock market, they have losing strategies, trying to get rich quick. They constantly are selling assets and they're constantly trying to take income, and they're very tax inefficient. This drags on your wealth building journey and it doesn't let you compound nearly as fast. Now, I'm sure you're wondering, well, if I'm borrowing money, I have to pay interest. Of course you do. But it's not the same as going to the bank with an uncollateralized loan, like a personal loan, and paying 10 or 12% interest, or even 15 or 20. You get very low interest rates. Right now I'm paying just 4.9%. I know people paying as low as 4.4%. And on large sums of money, this doesn't have that big of a payment. I'm going to have about a $600 per month payment, and I'm happy to pay it knowing that I get to hold an extra $140,000 of assets that are going to build me wealth in the background. Once you understand these concepts, everything changes. You need a blueprint. Once you have a blueprint, you can follow it and you don't get emotional when the market's down. Though we've recently had some chop in the market, I've seen quite a few YouTubers who have panicked and sold off their positions for a loss. I just bought $12,000 more in the last couple days. You do not need to be panicking and selling off positions. You shouldn't be buying positions that you have no conviction in. If you are panicking and selling, that means that you're not confident in your plan. That means that you have a losing strategy. Stay safe out there and see you next time.